Hi everyone, I'm Doug, and this is our new 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E EV electric vehicle. This is our first EV, and in this video I'd like to talk about why we decided to go electric and share our journey to get this particular EV. You may have heard the future of transportation is electric. Any number of manufacturers today have hybrid electric or fully electric vehicle options. While a hybrid electric vehicle is a great option for many people, my wife Julie and I have decided to jump in with both feet and go all electric. The benefits of EVs are well documented, and our reasons for wanting to drive one are pretty much in line with why anyone would. For starters, they're more environmentally friendly over the life of the car. Selfishly, the bigger benefit for us is the cost to own, partly because we have solar panels that give us free electricity, but also because EVs require very little maintenance, saving even more down the road. We are also fortunate to be in the perfect scenario for owning an EV. We own our own home with a garage and can easily charge whenever we want to or need to. But ultimately, the clincher is simply the way they drive. Smooth, virtually silent, and the instant torque of an electric motor makes even the slowest models feel punchy off the line. All it took was one test drive and we were hooked. So the only thing left to do was decide which one to get. As we start the year 2022, it seems manufacturers are introducing new EVs every month. But even when we decided to buy, we had a lot of good options. So to help us narrow down the selections, we set up some must-have criteria and simply wouldn't consider anything that didn't fit. It may surprise some of you to learn that our first criteria had nothing to do with range or tech, but body type. Our new EV would have to be a hatchback, wagon, crossover, whatever you want to call it. The car we were replacing was this 2012 Subaru Impreza, and before deciding to go electric, we were seriously considering a new Subaru Forester. This is our only other car, so the new EV would have to be a do-all, and we couldn't compromise on that. While we don't have kids or dogs, we wanted the extra seating for visiting family and friends, and the hatchback is a must for versatility. It's not unusual for us to load up with lumber or furniture for house projects, etc. So that eliminated any sedans, but we also eliminated a few smaller crossovers like the Hyundai Kona EV due to a lack of rear seat room. Now our second criteria, not surprisingly, was range. Everybody has different needs from their car. For instance, when we started considering an EV, Julie was working downtown Portland and had a 100-mile-a-week commute. So we would have wanted her to go all week without needing to charge. Even though charging at home is easy, we just like the convenience of not needing to think about it until the weekend. She now works from home, so we don't have that need anymore. However, one of the great things about living in the Portland area is we are 60 to 90 miles from many of our favorite outdoor activities. Cannon Beach is about 70 miles away. Mount Hood is about 80 miles away. The Columbia Gorge starts just 30 miles away and goes for another 80 miles or so. We love a good day trip and want to be able to make these without needing to worry about charging. So in order to do this, we felt we needed a car with a minimum 200-mile range. Now, if you know anything about range in an EV, to get a true 200 miles, you really need a car with an EPA-rated range of 230 to 250 miles. Once again, there are many EVs that meet that number, but it also eliminates a few good cars like the excellent Nissan Leaf, which maxes out about 215 miles of EPA range. One thing to note, as long as a car could reach our minimum range, more didn't necessarily mean better. In other words, if car X got 270 miles of range and car Y got 300 miles of range, that doesn't automatically mean we'd go for car Y. Both of them have plenty of range, and we would use other factors to determine which car to buy. One other thing to discuss along with range is charging speed. While we would mostly charge at home, where pretty much all EVs charge at the same speed, if we ever wanted to go on a longer trip, we would need a good level 3 charging speed. We did not set a minimum per se because charging speed is much more than a peak number, but did weigh that heavily into our decision. The third criteria was price, but long story short, we paid way more than we wanted to. More than any other car we've purchased before, and possibly more than we can afford. Oops. But no EV is cheap, and we decided to look at this as a long-term investment where an EV pays off best. And in the short term, the good news is our Mach-E is eligible for up to $10,000 in federal and state incentives, which will help a lot. The remaining criteria fall under the category of options. The must-have options include adaptive cruise control, heated seats, Apple CarPlay, rear view camera, a big sunroof, and a good stereo. The rest fall into would like to have, but not necessarily deal breakers if they're not available. Things like semi-autonomous driving aids or a heated steering wheel. And of course, new cars come with some great safety features that weren't even options 10 years ago when we last bought a new car. These are important to us as well. So we started seriously researching EVs around 2019, mostly through watching YouTube and the many automotive and EV specific channels. Finally, in July of 2021, we decided to drive a few for the first time. It started out as just a fun thing to do for my birthday, but we quickly decided this was something we may be ready to jump into. For test driving, we narrowed down to the Volkswagen ID.4, the Chevy Bolt EUV, and the Ford Mustang Mach-E. The Volkswagen ID.4 is a handsome crossover with good range. It is the right size, comfortable, and starts at a decent price. But one thing we don't like about new cars, and especially a lot of the new EVs, is this propensity to have large touchscreens that control everything, too often at the expense of good ergonomics. And that is certainly the case with the ID.4. We found the infotainment and HVAC controls to be horrible. Not the software, but the actual touch points on the dash and on the steering wheel. And for us, it was bad enough to be a deal breaker. It's really a shame because otherwise it seems like a really good car. When we were doing our test drives, the local Chevy dealer didn't have the EUV just yet, but they had a refreshed EV, which is effectively the same car with a little less rear seat room. Regardless, we really like this one. It drives well, is the perfect size, has good range, and has some great features at a relative budget price. Unlike the VW, the Chevy had excellent ergonomics with a perfect balance of screens for tech and physical buttons for things you interact with while driving, like climate control. The EUV also comes with a big sunroof that actually opens. The only thing we really didn't care for were the seats, which were improved over the previous generation Bolt, but still pretty flat and hard. They're fine for shorter drives, but on a longer drive we didn't think they'd be very comfortable. But what ultimately made us decide against the Bolt is the charging speed. Despite the cosmetic refresh for the 2022 model, Chevy didn't up the max charging speed, which is fairly paltry compared to other new EVs. This wouldn't be a deal breaker for 99% of what we do, but it would make any long trips a lot longer. If our gas car was a better road trip car, the Bolt would have been all we needed. But since we needed our EV to also be a road tripper, we decided against this one. For now. After looking at these two, we decided to try the Ford Mustang Mach-E, almost on a whim because we originally thought it was above our budget. But it was my birthday, so we thought, what the heck, let's take a look. Long story short, we just loved it. It still has the giant tablet that is day-breaker on new cars, but makes up for that with a great driving vehicle that otherwise ticks all of our boxes. We were particularly impressed with the quiet comfort of the ride, while still being something of a performance vehicle. Now, we're not Mustang people, we're not even Ford people, but one bonus to the Mustang tie-in is the styling. Love it or hate it, you can't say it's a boring jellybean car. We really like it, and it played into our decision more than we originally thought it would. We still weren't sure if it would fit within our budget, but we were sure this was the one we wanted. So we placed an order a couple days later. We decided on the premium trim with rear-wheel drive and the larger battery to get the 300 miles of EPA range. Unfortunately, by the time we ordered, the blue color we wanted was discontinued, and we didn't want black or white or silver, so really our only option was this rapid red metallic. Now, if you've considered buying a car in 2021, you'll know that the entire industry has been suffering from supply shortage due to the pandemic, especially microchips. Because of this, dealers across the country have limited supply. And because of this, any vehicle that has a modicum of popularity, especially a brand new EV model, is susceptible to significant dealer markups. When we ordered ours, the dealer tried to add on about $4,000, but we told them we would simply walk away unless they removed that. Fortunately, they didn't fight too hard, and we signed a purchase agreement for MSRP. We put down a $500 deposit, fully refundable in case we change our minds, and waited. And waited. And waited. And waited. Actually, we knew it would be a few months, so while we waited, we did two important things. The first was selling our Subaru at the end of August. We originally talked to the dealer about a trade-in, which they were happy to do, but we knew we'd get the most money if we sold it ourselves. Thankfully, the used car market was about as hot as it's ever been, and we sold it one day after listing it. And because we sold it ourselves, we got about $5,000 more than the dealer would have given us on a trade-in. The second thing we did was have an electrician install a NEMA 1450 outlet in our garage so we could charge our EV with a level 2 charger. This means we would be able to charge our new EV from 0 to full in about 10 hours. If we tried to charge from a standard outlet, it would take us almost 4 days, so the level 2 was a must. The cost to install an outlet varies greatly depending on your electrical panel and where the outlet needs to be located. Our outlet is very close to the panel, so we were able to get a complete install for about $600. So we put our order in on July 13th, and on the Monday after Thanksgiving, we got a call saying our car was in. Ironically, we were flying home from California when they called, so after waiting almost 5 months, we had to wait one more day before we could pick up our car. But on November 30th, we were finally able to bring our new EV home. Other than the time it took from order to delivery, the buying experience at the dealership was pretty typical. Not great, but not horrible. The only real disappointment was we brought it home in the dark, so we'd have to wait another day to really see it in the daylight. So do we have any regrets? The short answer is no. I fear we may regret not getting an all-wheel drive version living here in the Pacific Northwest, but we both work from home and have the option of simply not going out in really bad weather, so we should be okay. Also, part of me wishes I'd been a little more patient for a couple of models that are coming out in early 2022. But now that we have this one, I'm not convinced we'd love another anymore. I'm hoping to do a more detailed review of the car itself after we've had it for a while and have put some miles on it. But for now, I can say we really love the car, and we're finding adapting to an EV lifestyle is super easy. We can't wait to do our first road trips, and hopefully we'll be able to share those here as well. Even with our limited time with our first EV, I can confidently say this will not be our last. The future of transportation is looking brilliant.